Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing a quick present subjunctive mood review in Spanish, of course. A few of you have reached out to me to express the fact that you're having some challenges with this mood. So I figured I would make a tutorial to help as much as possible. Now, before we get into the technicalities of the subjunctive mood, I just like to remind you guys to make sure that you share the content that is on this channel with other CSEC Spanish students so that, they can get the help as well. And remember to let me know if there are other topics that you want me to address here specifically. So you can leave a comment, reach out to me on Instagram, send me an email, whatever works for you. All right. Now, before we get into the technicalities of the present subjunctive mood, we're going to do a bit of recap on the mood that we are more familiar with. And this mood is called the, the indicative mood. Now, most of us by now would have gotten through tenses such as the present tense, the preterite tense, the imperfect tense as well, the future tense, and these are just a few examples, right? Now, a similarity between all these tenses in the indicative mood is that we're expressing things that we are absolutely certain of. So, for example, if I'm using the present tense and I say, I walk to school, this is something that I'm sure of. This sentence is filled with certainty. I'm sure that I'm walking to school, right? That I walk to school. When we're using the preterite tense, for example, and I say, I walked to school. Okay, let's change the size a bit. All right. I walked to school, right? We are certain, we're sure that we walked to school. And I'll make like a contrast between this and the subjunctive mood so that what I'm saying about uncertainty is a bit more clear. But next example, I will walk to school for the future tense, right? Now, in all these sentences, there's a level of, as I said before, certainty. We're sure we walked to school. We're sure we walked to school. We're sure that we will walk to school. In other words, there's no doubt that these actions are definite and concrete. Now, when we go over to the subjunctive mood, we're going to see the rules for conjugating or, forming the present subjunctive mood. But outside of the technical or conjugation differences between the subjunctive mood and tenses that fall under the indicative mood, the overwhelming difference is that whereas in the indicative mood, in tenses like the present tense, imperfect, preterite, future tense, for example, we're sure of what we do, what we did, what we will do. We have concrete statements. The subjunctive mood is used to express things that we are more uncertain about, things that we doubt, things that we hope for, things that we recommend, right? We can hope for something. That doesn't make it concrete. That doesn't mean it's going to actually happen. You know, it's a hope, it's a desire. Same thing with a recommendation. We can suggest that someone do something, doesn't necessarily have to happen. And then with doubt, there's just clearly uncertainty, right? We're doubting, we're uncertain of what we are saying. So the form of the subjunctive that we're going to be looking at today is the present subjunctive. Of course, there are other forms like the imperfect subjunctive, but for the context of this tutorial, we're focusing on the present subjunctive. So I'll just put this here, just so we know that there are other forms, but we're focusing on the present subjunctive today. All right. So to use an example that I mentioned not too long ago, if we were to say, I hope that you will walk to school, we would use the subjunctive to express this because for starters, there is an indication that there's some level of desire or hope or uncertainty. And what we're hoping for or recommending or doubting is geared towards somebody else. So we'll also see that the subjunctive mood has these trigger words to express, you know, hope, desire, uncertainty. But then they also have a change of subject. I mean, it also has a change of subject. So this is the subjunctive mood, right? So we are hoping, doubting, recommending, suggesting, although that's kind of the same thing, something to another person. Okay. So right now, we're going to go to the rules of forming the present subjunctive mood. Let me get my pointer. All right. So I hope you guys are following so far. And of course, if there's any point in which you get a bit confused or you want clarification on something, you can always just let me know. Just leave a comment or just reach out to me. All right, great. So this is a present subjunctive mood in 3 simple steps. So the first thing we need to know, or the first thing that needs to be present for us to know that, okay, this is a subjunctive statement, is some type of trigger word, right? Now, usually these trigger words are summarized into an acronym popularly known as WEIRDO, right? So wishes or wants, emotions, impersonal expressions, recommendations, doubt, and ojalá, which is another way of saying I hope. So using our same example of walking, for a wish or a want would be that, you know, I hope that you walk to school. Emotion, I am sad that you walk to school. Impersonal expressions, it is heartbreaking that you walk to school. Recommendations, I recommend that you walk to school. Doubt, I doubt that you will walk to school, right? And then there's this little built-in example here. I hope that you have a good day. So this is the first part right here, I hope, of our subjunctive statement. The next thing is that que will always kind of be between the trigger word and the change of subject, right? So if you realize, I hope, trigger word is hope, that, which would be que, sorry, in Spanish. And then you have, I hope that you have a good day. So of course, trigger word, que, and then our third part is, the actual present tense, so sorry, present subjunctive conjugation where we have a change of subject. Now, something that I want to highlight, right? If we think about it, where's my highlighter? Okay, if we think about it, we're looking at the present subjunctive mood, right? And the trigger word in the present subjunctive mood is actually in the present tense. So just keep that in mind. That's a good connection to have right here. So to get back on track, we've looked at the first two parts of a subjunctive statement, any present subjunctive statement, or trigger word and que. Now, how do we actually conjugate that last part of the statement where we realize that, okay, this is a change of subject, as in the subject on this side of the sentence is different from the subject on this side of the sentence. We get to the point where we're like, this is definitely a present subjunctive statement because it has all three. Trigger word, que, plus a change in subject. Now, it's a fairly simple process, right? What we're going to do is that, so let's use our walking example. I don't know, I just like that example now. All right. I hope that you'll walk to school. In this statement, we realize that all three aspects of a present subjunctive statement are present, right? We have the trigger word, and this trigger word, hope, specifically depicts a wish or a want. We know that we're going to use que, and then let's try to use different colors for each section. So we have our trigger word that falls under weirdo. We know we're going to use que. And then right here, we see a change in subject. So you have the first part of the sentence. It's me hoping that, which is que, you will walk to school, right? So realize that it's two different persons, essentially, in this one statement. So have our first two sections down. Yo espero que. Now, when we get to the second part, or the third part, or the second half, the change of subject, right, in the subjunctive statement, what we're going to do is think about whether this is an AR, IR, ER verb. Now, walk in Spanish, or to walk, would be caminar, right, which is an AR verb. Now, the rule is that if we have an AR verb, we are going to take the endings es, hemos, or en, depending on what the subject is. And in this case, it's you. If it were an ER or IR verb, we'd use a, as, a, amos, and great. But before we jump and add any endings, what we need to do is think about the yo form of the original verb, so caminar in this case, in the present tense. Then we're going to drop the ending of the yo form. And then we're going to use these, switched endings that we just looked at. So we're going to do this step by step, right? No. What was the process? We're going to think about the yo form of the verb in the present tense, camino. Then we're going to remove that yo form ending. And then we're going to switch the endings and use the proper present subjunctive ending based on the subject that the verb is attached to. So just to be very clear, I'll add my accent soon. This form of caminar in the present subjunctive in our sentence is attached to you, right? So because caminar is an AR verb, we're simply going to add ES because that's the to ending in the present subjunctive mode. And again, that's right here. So just one more time. We think about the yo form of the verb, right? In the present tense. Caminar, camino. We drop that ending. And since it's originally an AR verb, we switch the endings using a ending, specifically S, because we are conjugating based on to. And that is essentially it. So we're going to practice just a bit more using the same steps that we just talked about. Okay. So let's use verbs that are a bit irregular in the present tense, just to make sure that we are applying the steps properly. Okay, so my mother hopes that I make the bed. She suggests that we put the money on the table. Let's try these first. Probably want to move this up a bit. Okay. So same procedure. My mother hopes that I'll make the bed. So mi madre espera que. So we got our trigger word down. It's in the present tense and our que. I will make the bed. So we see that there's a change of subject from my mother to me, right? So same procedure now. We're going to think about the yo form in the present tense of the verb that we're using. And as a reminder, the phrase for to make the bed essentially is hacer la cama. Let's put this in a different color. So we're working with hacer right here. Now, in the present tense, the yo form of hacer would be hago. Cool? So we have that mentally noted. We're going to remove that ending, and then we're going to do our, let's switch our. And since it is the yo form in the present subjunctive mood that we're trying to attain right now, we're going to be making a switch from ER to the A ending. If we go back up a bit, again, that is on the utmost right hand, conjugating the verb in the sentence. So one more. She suggests that we put the money on the table. Ella sugiere que nosotros. Now we're working with poner, to put. Same procedure. In the present tense, the yo form of poner is pongo. Make a mental note of that. Remove the ending. Do our present subjunctive switch. And we end up with pongamos. Ella sugiere que nosotros pongamos el dinero en la mesa. All right. So we have about 4 examples in total now. We have, I hope that you have a good day. I hope that you walk to school. My mother hopes that you'll make the bed. She suggests that we put the money on the table. And of course, we've been using mainly hoping, suggesting, but again, the trigger word are basically that first part of the subjunctive statement, right? That first verb can be expressing wishes, wants, emotions, impersonal expressions, recommendations, doubt, or ojalá. So it's not just limited to hoping. So now what I want us to look at really, really quickly, because this is also something that comes up just before we wrap up. Excuse my line, right? Okay, excuse my line. It's going through some things. There are some verbs where when we conjugate them to the present subjunctive mood specifically, we're at a risk of changing how the original verb sound. And I'll explain what I mean. These verbs are usually those that end with ZAR, GAR, or CAR. SAR, GAR, CAR verbs, right? So let's look at what exactly I am trying to say. Let's say we have buscar, right? So the infinitive form of this verb gives you a hard C sound. Now, if you were to conjugate this verb to, let's say, the to form in the present subjunctive mood, and you follow the steps, you'd get something like this. This is what you'd get. However, there's a significance, yeah, or a significant difference between how the infinitive form of the verb would sound and how this form would sound. So buscar, you have this hard C sound, right? Now with this, you would have buses, which is a soft C sound. So because you want to maintain the original sound of the verb, what you're going to do is just make a slight insertion, right? You're going to just change that C to QU and continue with your present subjunctive ending. And this is just because of how it would sound. So now we have bus case, which gives you that same hard sound as buskar. Okay, let's change the color of this. And similarly, if we have a verb such as okay, hugar. Again, we hear this hard G sound in this case, right? Now, if we follow the rules again, right, for conjugating this to, let's say, the to form of the present subjunctive mood again, we'd end up with, first we go to our present tense form, and then we're going to drop that, then we're going to switch this to ES. But now you have a significant difference between ugar and jueves. Jueves. Now you have a soft G sound because the G is directly in front of an E as opposed to like an A, right? So to rectify this problem, you're going to change that. Well, you're not going to change it. I'm sorry. You're going to add a U right beside the G so that we can preserve that hard sound. So now we have juegues. And then finally, for ZAR verbs, all we're going to essentially do, so let's use comensar as an example. All we're essentially doing is changing our Z to a C when we're working with the present subjunctive mood. So again, let's say we're conjugating to the to form present subjunctive mood, comensar. Following the rules, we'd say, okay, present tense your form is comienzo. And then we're going to drop this. And then we're going to, add our endings. Ending. For phonetic reasons, we're going to change this Z to a C. So in other words, when we're working with ZAR, GAR, CAR, why does this sound like I said the same thing twice? ZAR, GAR, CAR verbs. And we're conjugating them to the present subjunctive mood or in the present subjunctive mood. We have to be careful to maintain like their original sound, the infinitive form sound, right? So we're looking at phonetics. So all we're simply going to need to remember is that when we are working with CAR verbs in the present subjunctive, CAR, we're going to change that C to a QU. When we're working with GAR verbs, so verbs that would originally end with GAR, we're going to add a U right beside that G. And when we're working with ZAR verbs, we're just going to change that Z to C. And this will maintain as much as possible that original sound that we would get from the infinitive form of the verb. So yes, that is essentially it for this tutorial. The subjunctive mood and getting it right really boils down to remembering the rules, being aware of these nuances, like with the phonetics, ZAR, JR, CAR, and then more than anything, putting them into practice, right? Making sure that you are practicing with the present subjunctive mood, making sure that you remember the present tense and what the year form of verbs would be and irregulars, so that when you are conjugating in the present subjunctive mood, your first step when you get to the change of subject in the present subjunctive statement, this first step will not be incorrect. Because if you don't remember the year form of a verb, then your entire conjugation is going to be thrown off, right? So I really, 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 really hope that this review helped, that it was clear, that you feel a bit more comfortable with the present subjunctive mode, right? And as I said, if there are topics that you specifically want to see being addressed in a tutorial form like this, just reach out to me either on Instagram at ElAula with 2 underscores behind it, ElAula by cg@gmail.com, or here on YouTube at ElAula Tutoring Services. Of course, remember to share this video. It's most important so others can get the help as well. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, so you will see, new videos. Turn your post notifications on and just keep in touch with me, and let's get through CSEC Spanish together successfully. So it was great going through this topic today, and as I said, I hope it helps, and we'll be in touch. Bye.